I do speak up when I see something goes wrong, and I'm not the most liked maybe between recreational divers sometimes, but I don't care because this is not about ego. This is about, we're a team. We have to take care of the ocean that gives us so much, and we have to give back, and we have to protect this gem. I'm not okay anymore being silent about those things. And I see around the world, photographers don't have the best reputation, and even divers don't always have the best reputation. And the only way we can change that is to be more aware and to be better, to be the better version of ourselves. And if you pretend to love the ocean, just love it then with all your heart and all your soul and do the right thing.
Yeah, and even though it seems like common sense,
yeah,
for some people it isn't, or they're just, they don't care. I respect you for speaking up, because it's certainly not always comfortable.
No, and it's sad because you think that people using the ocean for their pleasure would be totally immersed, having a blue heart and soul, but it is not like that. So how long can you not speak up? We tried that, it doesn't work. The oceans really need our help. We have huge pollution issues. Climate change is not happening, and the acidification. So if we all stay silent, then we're part of the problem. And that's the reason I speak about it now in my talks, and I speak about it at the United Nations and other people.
And some of it's education. Some people just don't know better and they're receptive, and then other people may not care, but you have to keep doing it. I was in Grand Cayman a number of years ago, and on business, and we just went snorkeling. Actually, I didn't have enough time to go off a wall, particularly if we were going to go deep, because of the flight home. I needed time before I could fly home on a deep dive, but I was depressed in the shallow water. It was all bleached. You know, some of the people that were with me were impressed because they saw a fish or two, and I was shocked at the bleaching in the shallower waters.
Very curious. So we, as all over the world, we're in a lockdown, so we're not supposed to use the ocean. It's big fines here, like $1,000 to $2,000, and I totally understand it. We're fighting this pandemic as we should, but I'm very curious to go back and to see what this timeout has done for the oceans, and because we have been asking resilience from every critter in the ocean, and I'm really looking forward to see our resilience, how we are dealing now with this staying at home thing, but how it helps healing the oceans. So I try to see the silver linings, and I can't wait to go back and document the changes, the positive changes, because there have to be. We see sharks, well, the police helicopter that's patrolling, they see the sharks coming in closer on places they've never seen before. So those things are really, they make my day. Yeah.
No, that's really a wonderful thing that's happening around the world on land as well. Yeah. Although it's, in a way, it's sad when the animals are coming into the cities and so forth, but they're kind of reclaiming their prior territories on land and underwater. Now in the States, most, if not all, the beaches are closed. You're prevented from going in the water there because of beach activity, or what is the reason?
Yeah, so beaches are closed. We're under a soft curfew during the day, which means we can go out for groceries, but only on your name day, and then during a lot of times. And then during the evenings and night, we have hard curfews. So we are not supposed to be on any beach. Even if you live at the beach, you're not supposed to cross or actually be at the waterline. So I can't even walk my doggy. So he's very depressed now because he's a bit older and he has some issues, but he has to just use the backyard. So, yeah. And it's also just, if you go in the ocean and something happens, also people can't go fishing, not swimming in the ocean, because if something happens, it's a drag on the healthcare system, which I totally understand.
Yeah, that's probably the bottom line there. You know, stress on healthcare if there's a diving accident or whatever. Yeah.
It's again a team effort. We're all in this together. So yeah.
Now, earlier you were talking about when you got bent.
Yes.
Was that 45 feet or 45 meters?
45 feet.
Yeah.
15 meters. Very shallow.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah. And I still, when I first talked about it, when it happened and I went back to diving, I was on the boat, I got judged the whole time. So people just say, oh, what did you do wrong? What did you do wrong? I didn't do anything wrong. And then also when I dive here, I live here. So I think because of the heat, this is tropical, your blood thins. So I'm cold more quick than other people, and I dive in a 5 to 7 mil wetsuit when I'm diving here. And I always have to explain myself because tourists don't understand. And I learned that I don't have to explain, but the reason why I kept studying or I went back to diving and study so much is because now I can give them a scientific answer if I get questioned. Like, this is the reason why. And because that's an issue. It seems like everywhere you go, you're being questioned. And the more you know, the more you can answer. Yeah.
Can you tell our listeners what it means to be bent? And when you say DCI, what do you mean by that?
Yeah, so sometimes when you go diving and you come up too quickly, your body hasn't resolved, in very simple, didn't resolve the bubbles yet, and they can get stuck. And they call it the bends because if they get stuck in your joints, then you really have pain there, and you probably bend over by the pain. But it's in order to resolve those bubbles, that's why you come up slowly and you do your safety stops for the body to be able to dissolve the bubbles when they're still under pressure and smaller. So I had a type 2, which means they hit my central nervous system, and it's a different bend. I didn't have pain. I just was totally out of it. But before I realized, so I was so out of it that I didn't realize I was bent. I just felt really bad. And I just came back from Europe, but there's a lot of research about not going to dive before you are on a plane. There's not so much research when you get back from a long haul trip and jet lag and to get in the water. So I was just back from a trip to Belgium, came back to Grand Cayman. I waited a day and then went diving. So I didn't really do anything wrong, but coming up from the dive, I was very tired and I just blamed it on a jet lag. So the next day I went diving again and I was even more tired. And it was for a project about something, it was conservation. So the third day I told Michael, I said, I can't go diving because I don't feel well. I'm not at it. And those would be wall dives. So I said, I'm not concentrating. The day before I was on a shark dive. It was not too deep. I think the day after. But I was bent already because I felt really bad, but I didn't realize it. The day after I went on a shark dive, 65 feet or something. And I made a mistake with my buoyancy at the surface. And for me to make a mistake like that, it was really, my brain was just not functioning well. And that scared me so much that I said the third day, I'm not going to dive. I really feel bad. It took me 5 days to actually beg Michael to bring me to a hospital because I couldn't get on the stairs anymore to my bed. I couldn't walk a line. When we finally got to the hospital and I got oxygen, which helps with dissolving bubbles if they're still in your body, I was crying. I was so relieved. And then immediately they put me in the chamber, so a hyperbaric chamber. but I was so exhausted that I had a hard time breathing. And it's a very small chamber here in the Cayman Islands. We were 2 divers in it, and then a person helping you. So I really, normally they can free flow it a bit more in oxygen, but I really had to suck it out it's 20 minutes you're on oxygen and then you have a little break. And it was so exhausting. I was not doing well, and I was in the chamber for a total of 3 times for 5.5 hours, which with this COVID, it comes back a little bit because you hear people being on ventilators and people being on oxygen. And I know how tiring it is. If you have to do that for 3 times, just 5.5 hours, it's nothing compared with what is happening now. People in hospital for a week, 2 weeks have to do it when they're not in an inducted coma. So it was horrible. And then coming back home and not, so they said, yeah, you should be fine, but it's gonna take a while for things to come back and we're gonna monitor you. But even cooking, like a simple act of cooking, what I'm so used to, the process of putting something in a pan, butter, and putting the gas on and stuff, I couldn't remember the steps to do it. So it was the realization that everything, you have to let go of everything because you have to start all over again. It was very hard for me because I was in control the whole time before. I was in control with my children and teaching them and with my own life. And I was so organized, and suddenly I became so chaotic. And it makes you very humble. And then you go back to the doctor, and after 6 weeks, I got the okay. Yes, you're okay. You can go diving. And on my first dive, it was Alex Mustard was with us, the amazing photographer, Dr. Alex Mustard. So we go on a dive, and I have a macro setup. So just to not have to move a lot. So no wide angle photography, just macro. I was supposed to be a very easy dive. And I went to take a picture and my arm just started shaking and I couldn't finish that dive. And it's like, oh, what is going on? It's very, because it's an enemy you don't know. And there's damage you can't see. And that's the scary thing about getting an undeserved bend. Because if you get bent when you go really deep and you go up and you know you didn't do your safety stops or you went too deep and you didn't do them long enough, you know something can happen. And oh yeah, okay. People get skin bends here on the wall dives a lot because they bounce up and down a lot because they see something and then they go to the next thing. But then you know what you did wrong, and I think it's easier. I've known people in the water here, they got bent like 10 times, 15 times, and they still go back because they know what they did wrong. They sit it out and they go back. To me, it's playing with your life a bit because there's one day where you can't go back or something happens, something worse happens.
Yeah, you definitely, that bubble goes to your brain or your heart.
And then it's game over.
Yeah.
And that's also why, I'm sorry to interrupt, but going back to diving, so within years of extreme snorkeling, I got diagnosed with a PFO, which is a little hole in the heart. And everybody has it when they get born, but then it seals. And I also have a valve that doesn't work well. So I realized that I was just too exhausted on a dive. So I re-taught myself with an instructor to dive a different way, less exhaustion, and now I recognize it better. So yeah, it was very humbling.
Yeah, funny, it's not a funny subject, but a funny story sort of I'll share with you is we were in Martinique when I was with Jacques Cousteau, and I was on a dive with a wonderful diver named Bernard Delamotte. And after the dive, Bernard had some pain in his shoulder. And for the first time ever, in my experience, he went into the chamber. We had a 2-man decompression chamber, which for our listeners artificially takes you down to a depth, and then you can come back up in a in a scientific fashion to decompress and get those bubbles out of your bloodstream. And it turned out it was a false alarm. Bernard was fine, but we took the precaution. And even though I was on the dive with him, I had no symptoms, so I did not go in with him. He went into the chamber by himself, and he was in there pretty much all night. But he went in with a jug of wine. So, totally against protocol, I'm sure, but that was the kind of the way we did things at times on the ship.
Thanks for watching. For more information, visit our website at www.futurefrogmen.org.